Hey everyone, today I'm going to be taking you through what are the 10 best cards you can be playing in any GOAT format deck that you build, the best staples you can put in your deck, so let's get right into it. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment telling me what are the staple cards you like putting in your GOAT decks the most, and subscribe for more content like this. So we're going to start off with the monsters, right? And there's one monster that is an obvious inclusion in any GOAT deck, no matter the strategy you're playing, and that is DD Warrior Lady. Not only is it a light target if you are playing Chaos, but it's also a removal spell basically, in that it can also banish any monster it battles with and itself, which is great at removing threats if you have opponents' monsters that trigger in the graveyard, or you have big threats that you need to get rid of. DD Warrior Lady is a great help. The second one is Breaker the Magical Warrior. This card allows you to pop opponents' spells and traps, not to mention the counter you put on it also makes it go up to 1900, which makes it quite a beater. If you don't want to use that token to take it back down to 16 and pop a spell and trap, you can just attack over a monster and then pop the token after that. Breaker is a great inclusion, it's a dark, and it is just a fantastic monster. Now the third one is Tsukiomi. Tsukiomi is a spirit monster, meaning two things. Number one, it can't be special summoned, and number two, if it's normal summoned or flip face up that turn, it returns to your hand in the end phase. Tsukiomi's got a great effect when it's normal summoned or flipped face up, in that it's a mandatory effect to set one card on the field face down. Now that's great if you're playing flip monsters, so things like Magician of Faith, Magical Merchant, you can recycle all of those by just normal summoning Tsukiomi, flipping it back face down, and then you can flip it up again. Or if your opponent has big threats on the board, like Jinzo, like BLS, like anything that you need to get rid of, you can use Tsukiomi to flip it down, which then enables you to either get over it if you have a monster with high enough attack points, or use something like Mystic Swordsman level 2 or Noblemen of Crossout to just get rid of it. That's it for the monsters though. Now we're going on to the spell cards, and we're starting with one that I already mentioned, Noblemen of Crossout. Face down monsters in GOAT format are way more prevalent than they are in modern format. So Noblemen of Crossout, if your opponent has a set monster, you can banish that monster, and if it's a flip monster, banish all copies from both players' decks. Great if you want to get rid of something like Magician of Faith, Gravekeeper's Spy, or any value monster that your opponent sets face down. Noblemen of Crossout is one of the best removal spells that you have in GOAT format. Next we go on to Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a really versatile spell, depending on the levels of monsters you're playing in your deck, because you can get out any fusion monster whose level equals the monster that you tribute for it. You can combine this with things like Mind Control, Brain Control, Snatch Steal to get your opponent's monster and then tribute it off for Metamorphosis, or with something like Scapegoat to tribute for a Thousand Eyes Restrict, which is unironically just the best target for Metamorphosis in GOAT format, allowing you to use priority to suck up any opponent's monster. Going on to the next card, it's probably one of the most famous Yu-Gi-Oh cards ever created, but none of us know what it does. That is Pot of Greed. A free draw 2, apologies to anyone that didn't know what it did, but you know, having the ability to go +1 with no restrictions, and even being able to cycle it back with things like Magician of Faith or Dark Magician of Chaos is just a really powerful tool. And speaking of draw cards, the next card we're talking about is Graceful Charity. Graceful Charity can in some situations be even better than Pot of Greed, especially if you're trying to set up your graveyard. Graceful Charity allows you to draw 3 cards and discard 2. If you're playing any sort of Chaos deck or any sort of deck that summons from the graveyard a lot, then being able to discard monsters from your hand is actually really useful, and being able to cycle through more of your deck is never a problem. While being able to get cards to your hand is really important and really helpful, being able to take things out of your opponent's hand is also amazing, and that is why the last spell card on this list is one that makes your opponent go -1. It's Delinquent Duo. Actually pitches 2 cards out of your opponent's hand at the cost of only 1,000 life points to you. It's really big to be able to discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand, and honestly just being able to outtempo them with Delinquent Duo is a fantastic thing, although you really don't want to be on the other side of it. And that brings us to the final cards on the list. Trap cards. Right? Now I only have 2 trap cards on this list in my top 10. Trap Dust Shoot, which allows you to look at your opponent's hand and shuffle one monster they have in their hand back into the deck, being able to get full knowledge of your opponent's hand and then choose which card to send back to their deck is really amazing, and the fact that you're not sending the monster to the graveyard means that you make your opponent go -1 in their hand, and they don't have access to the monster anymore. They have to hard draw it or search it out again, instead of being able to get it back from their graveyard straight, which is really helpful. And of course, the last card in this list, number 10, Mirror Force. Mirror Force is an amazing trap card. It just can blow up your opponent's entire field, and if your opponent has massive tempo on you, you can flip Mirror Force and destroy all their attack position monsters. It is a great tool for evening out the game, and honestly it's one of the most powerful trap cards in GOAT format. So, what do you all think? What staples would you add to this list, or do you think I've missed out on? And of course, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks everyone, see you next time.